Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Budget Game Reviews. Today's subject of a cheap review is the Crash Dummies. That's right, that weird 90s toy that was surprisingly popular, that even got a 3D animated short made of it, has a game. Now this is actually different to the 16-bit game and the NES game, which we'd be able to tell if we can make out anything from these horribly blurry screenshots. They really didn't put any effort in here. If we open up the box, well, there's no manual unfortunately, but I'm sure we can work this out. We do get a cart, which is white and blue, which isn't normal. If we check out the top of this cart, it says The Incredible Crash Dummies, which, well, that's different to what the box says. Well, I don't know if this was some weird regional thing, but let's check out the game itself and see what it says. The Incredible Crash Dummies it is then! Remember, it's not the Incredible Crash Test Dummies. They were something completely different. This and the handheld versions are pretty much the same, but they are completely different to the other console releases. So maybe they renamed it so you wouldn't think it was the same game. But maybe, I might be thinking about this a little too much. Now, unlike the console release, this isn't a platformer. It's actually a series of 5 mini-games, and you play through them in order, and then when you finish them, you get to do it again on a harder difficulty level. So let's check out the first one. Your main goal in each of these mini-games is to try and earn some money, and in this first one we're going to be doing our best Buster impression by throwing ourselves off a building. The only thing you really need to do is hit that target. But you see all these awnings and these fire escapes? Well, you'll want to try and hit as many of those as possible as you're flying down the screen, because that will give you some bonus points, as we're actually doing some stunt work for a movie. Prep yourself and off we go! As you can see, we can bounce off these awnings, and if we do it enough times, we'll break through it. We can also change our shape. We can crouch into a ball to go slower, or you can actually point yourself down to go faster. Now remember, you are timed, so you can't just keep bouncing around forever. You will have to aim for that target. Thankfully, you do have an indication of how high up you are from that red bar on the right hand side. And you really do need to keep an eye on it, as the main way that you'll fail this minigame is by missing the target or running out of time. And if you're lucky to hit it, well, you'll actually complete the minigame and you'll get some cash. One of the other ways you can fail this minigame is by setting yourself on fire, or at least turning yourself into a crispy dummy, but it does result in this surprisingly well drawn bit of artwork. The second minigame actually has you driving a car. It's almost like doing actual crash test dummy work. Reluctantly crouched at the starting line, the green light flashes, the hammer goes down, the car slowly trundles forwards. This isn't a racing car, that's for sure, because our goal is to make it to the end of the track in the time allotted, as well as collecting all those air canisters, because our goal is to try and test out the front air bumper. There are a few obstacles that will slow you down, but if you're very good, you might find a few bonuses like money, the wrench, or an extra life. And as long as you don't damage the car too much, you will find your way to the end of the track and a big magnet that will drag you towards it. And there you go, you've completed it. Another mini game down. But there are a few failure conditions outside of the timing, because you can damage your car too much that you'll end up breaking down. Which is where those wrenches come into play. They will fix your car up so you can keep going. You can also pull off a few stunts with this car as well. But the goal is really just simply to get to the end of the track, which will lead us on to our next minigame, and a dummy that's way too close for comfort. And that's right, we are skiing down a mountainside. Do you get the feeling they just had a bunch of minigames and just rebranded them to match this? Because what has skiing got to do with the Crash Dummies? Have they ever strapped a Crash Dummy to a set of skis and thrown it down a mountain? I'm not entirely sure they have. As with the other minigames so far, it really is a case of just making it to the end target. But hitting those flagpoles will give you extra points, but it's not really mandatory to do so. You can also jump, which isn't always that useful, but I always do it over the finishing line. The main way to fail this one is by going off the course, or hitting one of the trees. But it's typically not too difficult to keep yourself on course, and thankfully those little snowmen that you see, well, you can actually just hit them straight on. They won't take you out. It is a relatively simple game, so there's not too much to talk about it. So let's move on to the fourth minigame. Not sure whose idea it was to employ some dummies at an ammo factory, but I think they might be the same person that designed this machinery, as some of these bombs come out pre-lit, and we have to blow them out. I didn't realise Crash Dummies had lungs, but there we go. Our other job is to use a hammer to break up any dummy parts that might show up. Not entirely sure if this ammo factory also makes Crash Dummies, or if this is just remnants of some of the dummies that failed in their job. Thankfully in this one we're not timed at all, but we do have to get 40 bombs across the 3 different chutes. If you fail to put out one of those lit bombs before it falls down the chute, then you'll actually take out that line, and it will stop it working. But that doesn't make it easier. It actually speeds up those other 2 lines. And if you fail one more time, that attempt is over and you will lose a life. Now you may not have noticed the number of lives you've got, but it does show up on that info screen before each of the minigames. In theory, you can actually perfect every single minigame that we've played so far, but this is the only one that I've managed to do it on. Which gives us double points. I mean double pay. This is all about pay, remember? Which leads us on to the 5th and final minigame, which is another great example of them just finding whatever minigames they happen to have around and just rebranding it. As this is a lander clone. You have to make it across the level, avoiding the other rockets, as well as the ceiling and all the other obstacles along the way. And then eventually plant your cruise missile in the target supplied. Now I actually feel it's easier just to give yourself enough momentum and then just allow yourself to drift up and down with a bit of extra boost. It's not the quickest way to complete the level, but you do have more than enough time to do it this way. Now obviously apart from the rockets, the other big thing that you have to try and avoid is all that rock that's around you. And if you do accidentally hit the ceiling, well, your rocket will end up pointing down anyway. I wonder if they only made one sprite for that. Now as you might have guessed, as you complete these 5 minigames, you get to do them all over again, but this time they're a little bit harder. Now there actually are a set number of difficulties, and each one will ramp it up as you go along. And on this level it is obviously far more rockets that will fly out to try and hit you. Overall it's a fun enough, if not particularly original game. It is just 5 minigames and that's your lot, with many of them having no real connection to the Crash Dummies at all. So until next time, I've been the Goldfish. That was the incredible Crash Goldfish Dummies, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching this budget game review. I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you've got memories of this game, good or bad, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. And if you really enjoyed the video, then there's buttons below that you know what to do with. Or if you're not sure yet, then there's 2 other videos on screen that you can check out right now.